The rockets and drones exploding in front of Israelis may be impressive outside the expert community, but Tehran warns that it was only a mild response to the attack on the Iranian diplomatic facility in Damascus. This was only a warning. If Israel retaliates, our response will be more forceful. According to unofficial reports, Israel is preparing for another attack on Iran. Retaliation could lead to a regional war. The Biden administration this past weekend made an ironclad pledge to further protect Israel. The topic of an Iranian attack on Israel was taken up at the UN.
If Iran or its proxies take actions against the United States or further action against Israel, Iran will be held responsible.
Israel's air defense system is called the Iron Dome for a reason. It is one of the most effective interceptor systems in the world. It is a missile defense system that protects Israel from short-range light missiles, mainly mortars or simple rockets that Hamas or Hezbollah launch at cities and critical infrastructure facilities within the Israeli state itself. The Middle East has been the most unstable part of the world since the mid-20th century. The causes of the many conflicts are unchanged: religious fundamentalism and disparities in the distribution of oil and gas resources. According to Israel, Iran is a nuclear power, which Israel believes will threaten security in the region. German experts warn that the conflict could even reach a global scale. In such an event, Poland, as a NATO member country, would also be threatened by Iran. The U.S. and the West as a whole are planning to contain their emotions, as they fear that Netanyahu will take the opportunity to strike elements of Iran's nuclear program, which would lead to a radical escalation of the entire conflict in the region, and possibly a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, but most likely also more attacks on Israel itself. A potential attack from Iran was warned against as early as 1983 by U.S. President Ronald Reagan. In 2008, Poland could be included in the U.S. missile shield. The former President George Bush was determined to deploy the system in Poland. Paradoxically, it was Donald Tusk who was against it. I will say one more thing that I will not say publicly. When I was in Russia, I managed to thaw relations. This is what we wanted. However, it cost something. It was not an easy task, and everything was fine until we brought up the subject of missile defense. Do you know what Putin said? He suddenly became very anxious, looked me in the eye, and said, "Okay, you want missile defense? Fine. But the next day I will direct my missiles with nuclear warheads at targets in Poland." Russia has missiles aimed at the U.S. Putin has already threatened the U.S., and he knows that if he fires one missile at an ally, we will blow them away. He knows that missile defense is not aimed at Russia. He is simply trying to threaten you. The unsettled situation in the world is due to the fact that Russia, and especially China, are trying to undermine the dominance of the United States on the international stage. A double game is being played by Germany, which can benefit from a possible change in the balance of power. Part of this game is today's visit by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz to Shanghai, during which he will negotiate the terms of economic cooperation. Berlin is lobbying for the creation of a joint European army and a European missile shield, where it would lead the way. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk spoke about new prospects for international domination. Europe must become the strongest political entity in the world because it has all capabilities to do so. We are economically, financially, technologically, in terms of population, bigger and stronger than the United States and Russia combined. Experts are divided over this statement. When asked if it was an attempt to undermine the position of the U.S. in Europe, this is how they responded. Was it about building strategic autonomy, namely an attempt to indicate that Europe would like to be strategically autonomous, that is, to have its own subjectivity and its own possibility of possible interventions, or to become a regional power? Russia and the U.S. cannot be left together because the U.S. is our ally and Russia is our threat. In the last 8 years in Poland, a number of contracts were signed for the purchase of armaments that launched a revolution in the Polish air defense system. Likewise, the construction of the missile shield only started under the United Right government, 8 years later than the Americans expected.